It is Monday, the 13th of July, 2026, and I had a good weekend. Didn't do too many videos or anything like that because I went to the Blues Fest. It was so fun. I saw Hardy, love his music, and a bunch of work in the yard and stuff. But there's a lot of news going on internationally, Canadian news, and I'm gonna get into some stories because there were two shootings in uh, Toronto rather, at festivals, concerts, and it's always in the back of my head now the last couple of years, which is so frustrating. I have been to so many raves, concerts, like you name it, in Canada, all over the place. And I have never felt like more reserved or more cautious where I don't want to go to things I used to enjoy in my own country, more again, more now, and especially in the last year. And and it's because of what's happening, right? And it's more and more, and it is unfortunate. And yeah, two dead, five injured, shooting at a salsa festival of all things. Like, why are you mad at like at a salsa festival? But anyway, here's a breakdown of that. There was another one as well, um, but I didn't look too much into that to get information. But I know there was another shooting that happened. But wild, and possibly more people dead. So I will look into that. So anyway, two people killed, six others injured. Okay, so it's saying six others, not five. So I don't know one or the other. At Toronto Salsa on Clare Street, I guess, festival on Saturday, 11th of July. Police initially issued an active shooter alert, but later clarified the incident involved an exchange of gunfire between two individuals targeting each other. Key details: casualties, two men are dead, one at the scene, one in hospital, and six people sustained gunshot wounds. Toronto police recovered two firearms and are investigating three separate crime scenes. No arrests have been made. Location: the incident occurred shortly after 8 p.m. near Clare Street, or St. Clair rather, St. Clair Avenue West and Arlington Avenue. So St. Clair Avenue West, Arlington Avenue, where an estimated 13,000 people were attending. The festival Sunday event was canceled. Anyway, political leaders, including Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Doug Ford, both garbage human beings that are shitty leaders and grifters and exploiting us. Anyway, they condemned the violence. But again, you are part of the problem as to why we have this violence more and more in Canada. And for people saying Carney's new, Carney's not new, right? Even in 2021, I shared my post, right, when he was like posting about G fans and stuff like that. I was like, you should be in jail, to be honest. Very simple post, but again, it's just to show that this guy he's not new. Bank of Canada, biggest wealth transfer for Canada, that for him giving to, again, his Brookfield friends, his banker friends, real estate friends, etc. And people didn't even see that, and they still don't understand what happened after that. Look at the cost of housing in Canada since then, and it was stable for so many, literally decades. Uh, and even Harper getting us out, how he did get us out during that time, had nothing to do with Carney. Where was it going with this? Yeah, and Bank of England. He's been called out as well by the former Prime Minister of the UK for what he did when he was there and how it crippled their economy as well. And again, he's a Marxist. And Marxists, communists, etc., socialists, like, this is not based on merit. It's the opposite of that. These are people who actually target people who are better than them in many other ways, right? And it's like, okay, so I could be smarter. They think it's because they're smarter than us, right? But because, again, they do the dork jobs, the desk jobs, because they're not physically fit, right? Or athletic enough, or whatever, or experienced enough to be like a first responder type, right? So they gravitate towards desk jobs, and then they start hating real men because they're out doing all the real jobs, right? And then they're like, they want to take and take and take from that, right? And they're like, oh, we should lower fitness standards, lower these standards, so we could get more dorks in. Anyway, and so I'm frustrated with it because regarding merit, that's something that even for myself, I had to deal with. Again, people getting hired, getting me getting overlooked as a woman in the infantry, as an officer, I getting overlooked for people that were not even as close, as fit as me, as competent as me, better with their drills and skills and all of those things. And yeah, because of inclusion, right? Because I was straight, I guess, and Christian maybe. I actually do think there is a lot more to do with that, and being a woman, and especially in my trade too. I would say an army hot, army attractive doesn't help, because you have men within, like for the hierarchy. I've talked about this before, and there's been research done for the gaming community. But in that, they were saying that when women are injected into like male dominated environments or fields, um, there's a I mean, it's noticeable where you have, like, you'll notice that the alpha men, uh, for gaming, for example, because again, it's mostly men that play these games, especially these violent games, etc. And it's just how it is. And so women, if they were playing as well, like even again, just minding their own freaking business and stuff like that, they would actually get a lot of heat and a lot of hate and vitriol from the weaker players or men that were more beta, and the alpha men were actually treated them much better, right? Again, because they weren't competing with them. And so I think it is with like weaker men within that hierarchy, they see women, especially if you do well, as a threat, right? And so because like we're making them look bad in the hierarchy, and or we're threatening their place or position within that hierarchy, and they can't stand it when it's a woman, right? If it's a man, yeah, it's okay, whatever. But when it's a woman, right? Even though she can out push up, out pull up, out shoot, like higher IQ, all of these things, don't care. Like even if they're again like fat, lazy, basement dwelling, Cheeto eating pricks. And again, I get so frustrated, but again, like no, they cannot have a woman succeed. And in these fields. Anyway, another rant. It's only 7:38 in the morning. I've been up for a few hours though. This was hilarious. This is Trudeau and Katy Perry, who is an actor, not, and so is Trudeau, and he and his father, and the legacy of Canada, like of our fall, like starts with them. And he's not in jail because we have an incompetent, cowardly government in Canada for over 10 years now. And we have people that are in positions where they should be, again, investigating people. People should be in jail, fired, all of these things. And these people are part of the grift too, right? So like even Bill Blair, etc. These people are corrupt. They will actually even use crisis actors and role players and fake scenes and stage things in order to, again, reinforce a liberal government narrative instead of actually telling the truth and doing his job and things. Anyway, but we need more people, again, that taxpayers are paying, right? Because like we're your bosses, right, Carney? Like we're your boss, not the other way around. And in this case, obviously, right? Like go back to Goldman Sachs or whatever. Go back to anyway. But no, we need more people like speaking up and out about this in government. We need more lawyers that are open to taking these lawsuits. Because even myself, like, and I gave up like 2 years ago, but I still help people with lawsuits to literally sue government and people within government, and it goes nowhere. And I think that even Tamara Leach, I think the Crown yet again is appealing the decision for Tamara Leach, like they haven't done enough to this woman. The longest mischief trial in history, and again, non-violent, all of these things. They let rapists and murderers go, and illegal immigrants or people, again, that should be deported. Again, totally fine. But again, white Christian straight woman, nope, can't have that from Alberta too. And fighting for rights and freedoms. And she might, so they're looking for jail, I guess. So she's been on house arrest. I think it's over with on the 1st of January of 2027 or something like that. And yeah. And this is what I mean. There's people within cabinet that have been there for way too long, dinosaurs. And again, they've done a shitty job. So I can't even believe they're still in, like Patty Hajdu and these clowns. And Melanie Jolie totally collapsed our trade negotiations. And they're not even going, again, to even try to resolve that. And even Doug Ford, again, another liberal, but he pretends to be a conservative. But even in his writing, right, the only reason why he gets the votes, like he gets liberal votes too, right? But it's only because they know that he's a liberal. That's why a lot of liberals vote for Doug Ford in these areas, right? Because again, he's giving all like the same like social, like the money and stuff like that, not only to his friends and family and stuff like that, but again, for the like all of these social welfare programs, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah. Here's
This is exactly
Answer
why.
for Katy Perry,
This is
a Satanist or whatever she is. Well, a puppet. Most of Hollywood is. Okay, so why you shouldn't trust the media anymore. Reason number 10,000, 6,482,000,000,000. That's not a real number. Okay.
exactly why people don't trust the media. Listen.
I apparently started a civil war in the newsroom at the New York Times with this story. Nicole Hannah-Jones, both in her public statements and then the original text of the 1619 Project, said they were trying to reframe America's founding around this moment in 1619. And they openly said, we are going to displace 1776 as the starting point of American identity as a nation. And I'm sitting here watching CNN one day and they're interviewing her about the 1619 Project. And the interviewer says, well, didn't you say you wanted to replace 1776 with 1619? And she just stares right at the camera. I never made that claim. I never said that.
Also, Marxists, communist socialist types love to erase history. Love it. Because they have no choice, right? Because when you compare communism, historically speaking, terrible. Terrible for everyone. And yeah, so you'd have to like completely destroy all the records of how it's failed and how capitalism has succeeded and why capitalism has succeeded in the free market, et cetera, and they can't have that. Again, Carney is a Marxist, and he even talks about in his book about that we're shitty human beings and stuff like that, and we need to be like managed by an elite class. Basically, I'm just summarizing everything, taking away property rights and things like that as well in that. Because we're too stupid to be able to manage it. But a soft-handed little carny who's never been on a farm a day in his life to actually do work, despite the fact my family generations of sailors and farmers and military and this and that and stuff like that. And this guy's like not even a real Canadian. He's a chameleon. He's a worshiper of money. Not a. Anyways, I'm all over the place again. So, anyways, focused on why you should not trust the media. And I've talked about the Wayback Machine and archives now for years. I love it. And sometimes it's been shut down. And I was like, oh, please come back. And it has come back. I haven't confirmed in the last few days, but I definitely use that a lot. And these are the reasons why.
My ears pop up. I'm like, what? You've been screaming this from the rooftops for the last year, basically. And I start thinking, I remember that being in print. And I go to the website of the original article and it's no longer there.
But the Wayback Machine has it.
But the Wayback Machine has it. So the next day I broke the story. So Brett Stevens, who's an opinion columnist for the New York Times, sees all this and sees my story, quotes me in his column that week, basically calling out his colleague at the Times, saying this is beyond the acceptable boundaries of journalistic ethics.
Why? Because you're a reporter who actually wanted to hold someone to the truth, hold them accountable when everybody else was trying to sweep it under the rug and have her out there on a lying campaign? This is why people do not trust the mainstream media. This is exactly why people don't trust the media.
So someone gets fired for exposing blatant lies of people that, again, are being platformed, like even on CNN, et cetera, blatantly lying to people. So why can't he call that out, right? And that's I do that as well, right? People in cabinet, experts, etc. I've screen captured what they've said and shared so many times, again, because of these reasons. And I've had to go back on the Wayback Machine and archive because they lie. And I didn't say that, like Justin Trudeau, classic example. And people allow that, right? They're like, they give them concessions, right? So even with Melanie Joly, a lot of people in cabinet, what they've said about events that have happened, like in the Middle East, like all over the world, right? Completely wrong. Right? Eliciting emotional responses in people, creating division and being flat out wrong. And then people like myself responding to them like, actually, you are not at all correct. And so what you're sharing right now, you dumb idiot, right? Especially when you're working in cabinet, right? And you're pushing for people to want to declare Article 5. Do you realize what you just said? How that makes people like within our government want to declare Article 5? Because a lot of people within government, heads of law enforcement agencies, military, all over Canada, et cetera, and first responder units, they're looking to you people in cabinet, and I can't even believe they still are looking to you guys for any advice or any information. Like, and CSIS as well has failed us so hard, and I know for a fact CSIS has whistleblowers. actually RCMP, you name it, all across the board in government agencies, CBSA, there are whistleblowers on the ground doing the actual job. I'm talking about even with the immigration process, etc. And they're saying this is broken. And they've been saying this is broken for over a decade now, and it's getting worse and worse. And I said through COVID, why? Because I'm talking to actual experts and I'm talking to people on the ground, the people that cabinet are not talking to or listening to, and CSIS as well, the middle management people are sharing this information to their supervisors, just like Helen Grews, etc. And it's getting shut down. These people are getting remedial measures against them, suspended, charged, removed, all of these things, but they're not going after, again, like the law enforcement that are literally going in gyms, surveilling women, getting access to their information by running their plates, etc. In Ottawa, right? And like they're calling it out more, right? But like they're not focusing on the predators within their agencies, right? Like doxing people, working with protests, especially on the left. You know what I mean? To like, again, like cause more harm. They're not focused on people that are damaging property at schools, you know, all of these things, universities, by paid protesters, etc., and by people, again, who are radicalized or paid, or all of the above. Yeah. This is the thing, right? Like when you go after the people that are telling the truth.
This is exactly why people don't trust the
you know that you're under some kind of a dictatorship. Okay, so I still want to talk about Lance Twiggs, Tyler Robinson, and that whole situation, and give more videos and content that Turkey Tom shared. I really wish you see, I will say full disclosure that I did get like a lot, and you can look at my videos from last year. So like I'm saying this, but you can refer to my videos from last year. I did share like information that was leaked out, not by government, by the way, but people within certain Discord groups or interactions with these people that were sharing information that that mainstream media was not sharing, or trying to dismiss, or again censor, etc. And he shares a lot of it, right? So he's the actual source. So that's why, and I think it's Megan Kelly, so amazing on her. She actually found the source. She has a great team. And through that, I've been looking at his other videos, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, so all the stuff that I was looking at from last year, I think, not all the stuff, but like regarding like leaked messages and stuff like that, like I'm fairly certain at this point that he might have been, again, the one that they were taking that information from and making their own clips and stuff like that, because they're long videos. And so well done to him. And he actually got this information from someone that was a friend of the two, knew them both, and gives a lot more information on Lance Twiggs. And again, so his like what he's kind of sharing as his image now, or from the 20th of April, like again, this is his new and improved look. And is it real or not? I don't know. When you look at like this guy, like his life story and what people have shared about his life, including with photos and videos and messages, etc., this guy has mental health issues, right? And I don't see how within a few months that could have been something that's corrected. I think he's absolutely lied under, like with his written testimony, like not written testimony, but when he did that interview, which should have been an interrogation. Anyway, he had to sign like, yeah, you know, that everything that he had said was the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Anyway, and so even with that alone, if law enforcement had access, and they do, they subpoenaed Discord and these other chat networks. And so if they have all this information, how can they be giving him immunity? I think that is so disgusting that they gave him immunity or whatever. This guy needs to be on trial. Lance Twiggs needs to be a part of this as well, on trial. Obviously separate, etc. Because there is, I think that there's, anyway, there was definitely, again, radicalization going on with him. And so I'm going to share this video because, again, even more information that people are giving about his life. And so for the fact that this guy has didn't even go to the preliminary hearings, I understand that because of preliminary hearings. But for the trial, I don't know. And someone correct me if I'm wrong or anything like that. But like, I don't know if he's scheduled to go already, and this is something that is already common knowledge. But I do know that on the 1st of September is when the judge is going to, Tony Graft, is going to make his decision on if this is going to go to trial or not. There'll be 4 hours of deliberation that is combined for the prosecution and defense, and then he'll make his decision then. But I mean, how I can't even believe that it's July. 1st of September, like he needs a decision, and there are preliminary hearings that last an hour, right? And then decisions are made, and or like half a day and things like that. You had 5 days, 5 whole days. So at this point, he has probable cause, absolutely, and yeah, I didn't like that Megan was kind of like really being negative towards him, though. Like, I'm going to say that I think he's very professional. I think he's being very thorough, and he needs to be. And so, even giving like as many concessions as he has to the defense, like I do think that by him rushing people, or again, the left are going to take this, right? Anything that the judge does or the prosecution does that they can use, they're going to take it, right? They need stuff because like there's just irrefutable evidence that puts Tyler as the one that shot Charlie Kirk with a soft point bullet. And I don't care what anyone wants to say about that I've gotten so much heat for saying that, because again, people are respectfully speaking in a cult, and not taking like someone's assessment as someone who isn't a firearms expert. I would say not. I mean, I know people that are again like former snipers and trained law enforcement and military and stuff like that. So like they're definitely experts. So when I compare myself to them, I don't consider myself an expert. But when I consider myself like in comparison to like my like other firearms instructors and stuff like that, I'm definitely on par or better. So anyway, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. And so do I think that he acted alone? I think that he took the shot. I think that he was in a network and a community of a mentally unwell people who were radical. And even with Lance Twiggs, like they were saying that he was drinking at alcoholic levels. He was on all these other drugs that he was taking as well. And again, under the age of 25, in my opinion, or at least under the age of 21, I don't know how old he was when he started, but like I don't think that you should be taking marijuana. I know that sounds so lame, but how it is now, like if it was organic, different story. But even for me, for my pot, and I don't promote, but it's a prescription for me. But I like it's so hard to find this type of brand where you're getting less than 10% of THC. And this one actually has this 9% THC and it's 13% CBD. Yeah. So there's more CBD in it than THC in it. And it's, again, so because there's like at a minimum, when I go to like places to see like what kind of like THC is around and stuff like that, it's like 25% seems to be like the lowest that you can find in a lot of places. Like 25%, I can't even believe that, and it goes up to again in the thousands. And I don't think that's good. So like who knows like what the percentage was that he was consuming of that as well. And what else? Yeah, just a series of mental health hoarding. He was nesting, they were calling it as well. Like these are all clearly indicators of like mental health issues, being under duress and just needing help with that, right? And so this is not me I'm not saying I'm condemning what happened, obviously, but like when people are struggling with mental health issues, again, I do believe that they need to get proper help. And if if people are concerned about people, just like with the BC shooting in Canada with that trans shooter, there were so many red flags. Law enforcement knew of him. Mental health experts knew of him. Schools knew of him. People within the community knew of him. And if you look at the videos that this guy posted, right, where he looks like the clown. Is the clown? Anyways, like with the friggin' like even with like the red smile and things like that, just looking so unhinged and the laughing and stuff like that. It was literally, it sounded demonic. Like, not to exaggerate. And yeah, and so this guy, in my opinion, should have been committed for a certain period of time in order, again, to like manage, right? Like all of that, right? And so he definitely needed treatment. And so for him to be like out in the open, and we're doing that a lot again with people that should be deported, we're just like allowing them on the streets, and people who are violent criminals and or sexual predators. And yeah, they should be deported, or again, like in some kind of an institution to get them help, not for a long period of time, because again, taxpayer funded, but I would argue even like a few weeks, right? And a sober place as well. So this guy, if he was sober, I do think that would have also helped his mental health, because when you're in active addiction, right, like there's a lot of psychologists actually and people in the clinical fields that will not treat people like for counseling if they're still in active addiction, right? And so and they're allowed to make their choices. I understand where they're coming from. I'm not a psychologist, so again, it's like not my bag. So I'm gonna get into the man who murdered Charlie Kirk. I do want to talk about Canadian content because again, like our news, there's a blitz now again to paint Pierre Poilievre as some kind of like enemy of the state or whatever. It's hilarious, and yeah, trying to like blaming Pierre for like the last 10 years of poor management of the country and grifters and criminals again exploiting us. And somehow they're blaming Pierre for that. And again, every single news outlet, pretty much state-funded media, funded by Carney, and they know. And again, this is the thing that like I hate the most is that they know that if and when the Conservatives win, they're worried about their paycheck, right? They don't care about us at all. They keep on lying to us, to the fact, like to a fault. I'm talking about where like lives have been ruined, destroyed, people have died, especially through COVID, right? Taking their advice from non-experts, people that they were platforming who are non-experts and very radical. And again, DEI hires, like ESG DEI hires, not based on merit. And they had them as the experts instead of people like Baron Bridle or Helen Bruce or you name it, Peter McCullough, me. Yeah, wild. Okay, so I think again, like more people need to put the pressure on to get Lance Twiggs on the stand if he's not already scheduled to do that. And because I heard something about immunity, and again, I said this in a message too, but I was talking about Candace's comments on, and not just hers, by the way, Alex Jones and others as well. And I've also mentioned this. So again, refer to my videos from last year. I've talked about people again that were connected to Israel in the crowd. I've talked about the Egyptian planes, et cetera, and the facts and the data from that. And I would say that because it didn't surprise me again that there's Egyptian planes or any intel planes monitoring Charlie Kirk, right? So I don't think it was just Egyptian at all. But again, like not having to declare when they're entering American airspace, by the way, is a concern. And the US, I don't know why they do that, but they allow certain countries, by the way, where there are terrorists and stuff like that, especially within their government, to access, again, our airspace. I just can't even believe that they do that, and Canada does it as well. And so, yeah, because they're going to do that, like likely, again, to monitor, to survey, et cetera, to get to access information. And again, they can retrieve so much information from people's phones just by flyovers and stuff like that. And we see that at the Freedom Convoy as well, which is, by the way, illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional. And they did it. And I wish they didn't. And I tried to warn them that what they were doing, again, like it was unconstitutional, et cetera. And it's going to bite them in the ass several years from now, right? When we have our Nuremberg 2.0 trials. And even with COVID, and I'm glad that people are still, again, not letting this drop, because there are a lot of people in Canada that were vaccine injured even, right? That our government, what they did to them and the refusal of services, et cetera, and not supporting them at all, just offering aid, what we've done, it's disgusting. And then even with the blood clotting that I was sharing years ago, like when it first started rolling out, where was I getting my information from? People that were working in the morgues, the funeral directors, all of these people that were, again, sharing this, right? And so in Ottawa as well, even in April 2021, I was again sharing information that was coming again from people that were working in morgues, people that were working at funeral homes, and et cetera. They were sharing this. They were trying to get this information out, right? And they were getting shut down by CBC and CNN and people like that. Can you believe how disgusting that is? And they were saying, we've never had this before. And we've never seen this before in decades, right? Family generations of doing this work. And it's only after the vaccine rollout that we're seeing these white friggin' clots, right? Like look like string, like and again, it's reality. And again, people that were working in cabinet and the experts they hired, what's her name? Teresa Tam, et cetera, should be in jail. And they were not experts. They're never anyone that ever worked in these fields on the ground. These people that have been working on boards, committees, and panels, like sitting at a desk doing absolutely nothing to gain experience in these fields. And and taxpayers, again, what was the bill for that? And so Rebel News, good information on that. Moose on the Loose, Jasmine Lane, and others. Okay, so circling back to Charlie Kirk and the murder. I don't think it was suspicious that that there would be people again monitoring and tracking Charlie Kirk. I think they're doing it to Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Steven Crowder, etc. People again that are exposing Israel propaganda and the EU WEF propaganda essentially as well, right? And Netanyahu, etc. Because he's a criminal, and so there's so many billions, trillions of dollars invested in the military, pharmaceutical, industrial tech complex, right? That it is reliant on these Middle Eastern wars, especially, and to varying degrees in Europe. But again, like people are losing, there's like more and more people want again there to be an end to the war, and they know that billions of dollars again are going into the hands of these grifters, right? These heads of these companies, right? The Peter Thiels, the Alex Crosses, the heads of Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, you name it, Boeing, oil industries. And so these people, again, they can be very dangerous, and they're also on the Epstein list, a lot of them, and or varying lists, right, that are very similar to what the Epstein crowd were doing, blackmail, bribed, all of these things, and again, just perverted, disgusting, evil human beings that just wanted to do what they knew they would be allowed to do. Not even allowed to do, but what they would be able to do because of disgusting predators. And yeah, so Charlie Kirk, especially for the last few months of his life, was addressing that. He was going on major podcasts, even PBD, and he was having these conversations. He was calling out people like Mark Levin, and I think Mark Levin as well, and Sean Hannity. He was actually, I do remember. And again, he refused the bribe. He refused the bribe, the $150 million. And that was what sealed his fate, right? You don't accept the bribe. This happens in all over the world, by the way, but it's getting more common in the West, clearly, right? With this happening, this is not, again, unfamiliar territory in more corrupted countries, right? But it's just unfortunate that we're seeing it now in the West, where that used to be like the last line, right, of this stuff happening. And then with people from Israel being in the crowd as well, there could have been absolutely spies, plants, agitators, or people supporting him because there were still a large percentage of the Jewish community that really supported Charlie Kirk and what he was sharing, right? He was a big proponent and advocate for Israel for many, many years, and for Jewish people many, many years. And so I think it's a blend. And so they could have been in there again, not at all because they wanted to murder him, but because again they did want him again to stop what he was doing. And so again, gathering information, all of these things, or maybe in support as well, to varying degrees. But yeah, but I still think we need to look into it, right? More into it. And I was going to say something else about that, but yeah, it's still very. And then again, with the FBI shutting down, looking further into people that were part of like the furry communities and things like that as well. Like why? I still don't understand that. But that might come out in the trials as to why, but I doubt it. Because again, like I'm like so frustrated right now that like Lance Twiggs again has some kind of immunity, and he's lying. And there's so much information that they actually obviously have, and they're still allowing him to have. I'm really like, what the hell are they doing? This thing here, not having Lance go to trial will be again what's going to make this a conspiracy theory for decades to come, because they're gonna like again, this is the weak point.
Challenger, and a little while later, he drove off to Utah Valley University. 3 hours.
And it makes you think, like Lance Twiggs, like was he radicalized or paid or hired? I don't think he was in this case, but like not directly. There's even ways that people can actually like access your computers and actually like change your algorithms and your content that you view, right? So like if you're on YouTube and stuff like that, and you refresh and stuff like that, and you're looking at videos, there will be like videos that you like, again, it's going to be tailored to, again, like make you go fucking crazy, like MK Ultra you. And so that's an easy way. You don't even have to be in the like in the room with the person, or even in the same country. You just have to like make sure that like on their feeds and stuff like that, and whatever social media platform they use, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, TikTok's a big one as well. Like the algorithms can be manipulated, right? And foreign nationals do it as well. And these are military tactics, in my opinion. Financially as well, targeting a country financially, that is a war tactic. And I don't know why we're doing business with China when there should be investigations and trials, right, for people in Wuhan and Fauci and these types for how this gain of function, whatever you want to call it, was released. Who funded it? Anyway.
Hours after that, at 11:49.
Okay, this is Turkey Tom. I haven't watched this whole video, but from what I've seen so far, again, like I'm not, like, man, he's the source, so FBI should be talking to Turkey Tom. That sounds weird. Okay, I think it's playing. Oh, no.
On the morning of September 10th, 2025, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson decided he wouldn't be attending his electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College. At 8:23, he walked to his gray Dodge Challenger, and a little while later, he drove off to Utah Valley University. 3 hours after that, at 11:49, he exited his car wearing a different set of clothes, a cap, dark sunglasses, and visibly limping toward the parking lot adjacent to the UVU campus. He walked up the parking lot stairs, headed to the Low C Center, and then was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, conservative speaker Charlie Kirk was hosting one of his debate events on campus, roughly 200 yards away from where Tyler was. At exactly 12:23, a single shot rang out, piercing the left side of Kirk's throat, sending the entire campus into chaos. Although he was quickly rescued and rushed to the hospital, he only lasted for about an hour.
Okay, and so I shared this so much last year, and I don't want to share it again because, again, it's a horrific video. Like you're seeing Charlie Kirk, one of the, I didn't know him personally, obviously, but like one of the nicest people, right? Like better Christian than I could have ever been, and getting murdered, right? And so people are saying it was some kind of like a palm pistol and this and that, an explosion. Like, again, I'm going to reiterate, we heard the round fired. Okay? We heard it. It was a rifle round. It was a rifle round, which is a distinct round to a 9mm pistol or whatever caliber, you know, like they're trying to claim it was, and again, in a palm or some kind of projectile, etc. And you would like we heard the crack, and multiple different videos of people like with their stories that they were posting, etc., not knowing that he was just about to get fucking murdered. Actually, people even doing interviews where you hear it and then they don't understand what was going on separate, like they were away from like the tent, but again, having interviews. And you hear it. Again, and it was immediate. Like this is stuff that was posted with it like very shortly after it happened. And so if you're gonna tell me that every single one of those people faked that or edited like the sound in their videos, when these were live streams as well, I'm gonna reiterate that, then I don't know what to tell you at this point. And I mean that as respectfully as I can, because it's getting frustrating now, because I'm still having conversations where people are trolling me, going in my DM saying I don't know what I'm talking about, that it was some kind of, again, like mic explosion or palm friggin' pistol or whatever else it was. And these are literally people that have never even fired a gun a day in their lives, and they've had desk jobs. I'm sorry, you know what you're right? Who am I? That's what's frustrating. Non-experts, again, like giving their expert advice from their basement. Anyways, so if that's you, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to offend, but again, I'm just sick. It's just frustrating at this point.
His passing was officially confirmed. To add to the already extremely tragic situation, CCTV footage showed Tyler, then unknown to the authorities, fleeing the scene and successfully evading capture, seemingly holding on to a bag with his weapon in it. Part of why he was able to escape were two people who drew attention to themselves immediately after the attack took place. The first is George Zinn, who falsely confessed to the shooting and was promptly detained and was recorded being escorted by the police.
I did a deep dive on him as well. I talked about his activism. I showed the police reports, all of these things. that again, since the 80s, this guy was a political activist. He was known to be crazy, all of these things. And then look at what he said, even about the Boston Marathon bombings and 9/11, all of these things. And again, he was wrong on all of it. Okay, and he was not taken seriously. This guy had mental health issues. Okay, and even through the community, they were saying yeah, he's known as being crazy and stuff like that. And so, anyways, did a deep dive on him. He's probably going to get into this as well. And this guy though did have CP on his friggin' phone, right? So, what the f? Jail. Anyway.
With his pants down, as he repeatedly asked them to shoot him.
We don't know if it's him or not.
As it turns out, George Zinn is a man with a lifelong career of being a deranged nuisance orbiting political events. There are pictures of him accosting the former Utah House Speaker Greg Hughes, as well as former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. But more importantly, George is on record.
Giuliani covered up 9/11, and again, he's a disgrace to his country and to New York, in my opinion. And he's really failed firefighters, law enforcement, victims, victims of 9/11, and again, and he's what, like a millionaire? Fuck that guy.
To have personally witnessed 9/11 and instantly knowing that Al-Qaeda was behind it. Given Zinn's profile, this was most likely a tall tale, a false account to get attention. Something similar happened in 2013, when shortly after the Boston Marathon bombing, he emailed the Salt Lake City Marathon organizers and offered to help place bombs, which got him arrested for the threats. Other things noted in his legal records are commitments to mental hospitals, being arrested for theft of services, failure to disclose his identity, jaywalking, and other stuff like that. Due to the extremely controversial nature of this entire thing, George Zinn ended up being massively misreported as being Jewish, a narrative that found its way even to former NFL star Antonio Brown. However, George is actually a mentally ill man of Greek descent, with a Mormon religious background and a history of pulling this kind of stunt. Just a little while after he was detained, they noticed that he had no weapon on him, and there was no weapon discarded in the area he was in, meaning he couldn't have committed the crime. This doesn't mean he was innocent though, as when the police brought him in for processing, he had a medical issue that led to him being taken to a local hospital. There, he admitted that he did what he did to purposely hinder law enforcement from getting the real guy. And when asked by cops for his phone, he volunteered, but not before informing the police that he had illegal material involving children on it. As if that weren't enough, he then specified to the cops that he was in possession of the material for his own gratification and had a preference for girls from ages 5 through 12. Given this guy already has dozens of previous cases, I hope he stays locked up for good. Yeah. Another person of interest that immediately emerged following the attack was a man named David, who was recorded cheering and chanting USA immediately following the shot. While this man's full name is harder to find than George Zinn's, he actually took to Twitter to identify himself as the one chanting, trying to explain that he did it.
I was able to find him too, and I shared, again, a deep dive on him as well. David is his name. And what he shared afterwards, like his explanation. I shared witnesses too that were there with him, that were there beside him, etc. And then there as well, again, clearing this guy's name, okay? And he was saying, I think it was that he was trying to cause a distraction so that people can safely get away, right? Like he was like putting himself on the line or whatever it was. And again, that's what he says and things like that. But again, there was also witnesses there that didn't know him, but that were sitting right beside him, that were again saying that were corroborating, right? And so many other things as well that people were, even the ring, all of these things that were easily explained away. And anyways, let's see what he says.
Draw attention so the security team could escape. At face value, this is extremely suspicious, and although it's unsure if this was the second person whom law enforcement detained, it would make sense given he gave them a good reason to believe he was at least involved with whoever committed the assassination. However, a brief examination of his social media account makes it clear as day that this man too is clearly suffering from some intense delusion. In videos he posted, he suggests that Charlie Kirk was a soldier of his and speaks from the perspective of every major religion, which you don't need to be a mental health specialist to recognize as a telltale sign of schizophrenia. Despite George and David clearly committing obstruction.
About Turkey Tom, though, is that like he's like classifying everyone as schizophrenic. I don't think he's a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist or whatever that can make these diagnoses. And that even with the Kabbalah stuff, he's like, oh, if you like look into astrotheosophy or biblical cosmology or the occult, right? Like if you're cultured or rich, right? Like you're seen as a genius, right? or you know, like again, well cultured or educated, right? But if you are again poor, I guess you're schizophrenic. Cool.
Of justice, there is no evidence indicating that they were in on what happened. Over the course of
again, like delusions and things like that as well. So again, I understand his point in these cases, but the examples he was giving, like again, to like collectively like classify entire groups of people as schizophrenic, that's a bit of a stretch. But again, he does have strong arguments in these cases, right? When you see like, anyway, but again, it's not just schizophrenia where they can have like these delusions and things like that, or mental health struggles, right? Like there's so many others, BPD, general anxiety.
The next day, law enforcement swarmed the location and started piecing together the shooter's movements leading up to the assassination, and a series of strange things were discovered. While examining the vantage point and CCTV footage that showed his escape from the scene, they eventually found that the killer had dumped his weapon nearby, wrapped in a towel. The weapon, which is a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle with a mounted scope, was found along with its bullets. The casing, which was spent, had the words "Notices
This
bold."
would have saved me a lot of time, because he shared
Remington. If you're familiar with this kind of language, which I
soft tip in the background, and again, they haven't confirmed yet, but they did confirm that again, it was a 306, and again, soft point, and again with the live rounds that he's sharing now that were retrieved with the gun in the photos, etc. It's exactly what it looks like, right? So people that are saying it's FMJ, when you look at the tips, how can you classify yourself as an expert? I'm talking about the experts now that are like here, like Robert O'Neill, etc. When you see the rounds that were collected, right? It's very clearly soft point. He gives a good example. Again, that's what I thought as well. Maybe Remington, but it could be another brand. But again, it's still 30, still same caliber, and a soft point.
Fortunately am. This is a meme phrase usually associated with traps. Basically, the idea of it being that the speaker is attracted to a person who looks like a woman only to find out that they have a bulge, which the speaker is then interested in. And the word OO being a classic emote associated with anime. The intended irony here is obvious, as Charlie Kirk is infamous for his opposition to transgenderism. So having this phrase engraved on it immediately suggests a political motive. There were 3 more casings, all of which were unspent. The first one read, "Hey fascist, catch," followed by an up arrow, a right arrow, and 3 downward arrows, which is the stratagem code for the Eagle 500 kilogram bomb in Helldivers 2. Like the previous casing, this one also had a clear political message.
That's another thing that Lance Twiggs was talking about, like the video games that he and Tyler Robinson would play. Again, even with that, he talking about these games that were like very innocent games that they would play and stuff like that. This guy was playing Call of Duty, all of these other games, logged in, right? So like again, like law enforcement would have that's like, why wasn't that added? The fact that he was playing violent video games and interacting with other people on these games, these platforms, and having crazy conversations.
Message with an internet culture related element.
Yeah, Helldivers 2. Like this is not like Minecraft.
Second unspent casing had a brief passage of the song Bella Ciao on it, an old Italian folk song closely tied to the anti-fascist movement. Again, clearly political in nature. Yeah, although, unlike the other ones, this one has no internet subculture aspect to it. Lastly, the third unspent casing read, "If you read this, you are gay. Lamau." These casings alone strongly suggested that whoever the shooter was, it was someone young, at least someone young enough to be familiar with these online phrases. Unfortunately, even with the prints being lifted from the weapon, they weren't able to identify a culprit. At least to the public's knowledge, these prints didn't immediately reveal the shooter's identity, although they would become useful whenever a person of interest was detained. For the next day or so, despite information slowly being made available to the public, it didn't seem like law enforcement were making significant progress in the case. Given how high profile an incident it was, and how much it had inflamed the United States as a whole, people were pretty worked up. And unsurprisingly, they launched their own investigations. Once again, things get a little tricky, but this time around, it's a bit more complicated. It's important to say that as far as any of us know, none of these people are responsible for, implicated in, or in any way related to the assassination. However, it is important to take everything into consideration, especially considering how ominously foreshadowing some of the posts I'm about to talk about are. The first of these is a set of tweets by someone named Omar, with multiple Twitter handles. The tweets from the 9th of September read, "Charlie Kirk is coming to my college tomorrow. I really hope someone evaporates him. literally. Let's just say something big will happen tomorrow. After the shooting happened, this person came back to Twitter to say, Charlie Kirk got shot. Bro, I promise I didn't have anything to do with it, but I called it and it's so deserved. Eventually, this person took down their own Twitter account and someone completely unrelated took the other handle to prevent it from being taken and used by scammers. Side note, this only kind of worked because if you look up the handle on Twitter now, the first result is a fake account promoting a crypto scam in the name of Charlie. Pretty disgusting stuff. Yeah. As people saw this tweet and had a revelation.
In the name of Charlie and with crypto and stuff like that and Trump, like that connection as well, could have been, I don't know, even a sacrifice. I don't know.
Of someone who accurately called that this would happen. Someone looked up that handle on Google, found the first picture of a person, and then spread the claim that this person was Omar or Najra Galv's, their Twitter handle. The thing is, if you look up someone's Twitter handle online and go on the images tab, you may get the images of any account that may be associated with theirs for whatever reason. They could have replied to each other years ago and it pops up. In this case, the person in the image is an account named Michaela Ultra from Seattle, whose account is now protected. The thing is, decoupling these two accounts was not enough for a lot of people, who promptly went through their tweets and found a reply from Michaela Ultra to a limited account that expressed they weren't fans of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Additionally, 2 other tweets were screenshotted, which read, "I'm crashing out. Coming apart at the seams. You're watching it live in real time. Keep your eyes peeled on the news." When someone replied to them suggesting they would be the next trans shooter, Michaela Ultra replied by saying, "Finally someone who is smart enough to read between the lines and figure out what all my Dr. Pepper posting is about." Now, as ominous as all of that sounds, especially since these tweets were made just a day prior to the assassination, and Michaela bearing some resemblance to AI-enhanced CCTV images of the assassin, the explanation to these tweets lies in the mention of Dr. Pepper. None of the tweets made on the day prior to the attack had anything to do with Charlie Kirk, conservatism, and it clearly wasn't serious, as they were all related to DMs exchanged with the Dr. Pepper Twitter account, demanding to talk to the real Dr. Pepper. On Instagram, they made a post saying, "I am suspended from Twitter, so I can't post proof of life there, but I would like to confirm that I am not the Charlie Kirk shooter." As far as I could tell, Kayla or Michaela Ultra never hinted at doing anything to Charlie Kirk, nor condoned what happened on the 10th. As far as who was really behind the Omar Twitter account, one person was found. First name Omar, last name Najera, like the Twitter handle, who also identified specifically as non-binary, just like the Twitter account. However, this person hasn't spoken out as of yet, and again, there is no specific evidence tying them to the crime. There was someone else, however, with much more incriminating material on their socials. Much like what happened to Michaela, as people ravenously dug through online posts to find evidence of someone connected to that Omar account who had hinted at what would happen to Kirk, they found a certain Sky Valadez. Sky was a member of a band called God's Finest Scalpel, or simply God's Finest, which was featured on a post of account Click Click Boom. Here, they're tagged as Straight Death, and if that name wasn't suggestive enough of some kind of terrorism, God's Finest had a song titled Charlie Kirk Dead at 31, which was up on its SoundCloud long before the attack happened, and a similar song called Charlie Kirk's Death Isn't Enough for Me on Bandcamp, from an album titled Death to American Scum. While that is all pretty on the nose, it could just be excessively edgy trans activism. When people took to the comments of the Dead at 31 song on SoundCloud, Sky replied, "I'm not a student at any college. I don't support political violence. This song was a massive coincidence, and I'm leaving it at that. I will not take this down, as I believe in my First Amendment rights, and I believe that if you think this is disgusting, you're worried about the wrong thing." This response could have laid the issue to bed, but the people looking into this stuff weren't just looking for potential culprits, but also anyone who knew about the real shooter's plans and didn't report it or try to prevent it in any way. Despite being seemingly completely exonerated, Sky also took to Instagram. "I am not the shooter, nor a current alumni at UVU. I had a dream back in March of this year when I recorded and debuted this song on SoundCloud. It's complicated and cheesy, but I did foresee the death of Charlie Kirk this year. However, not at a conference and not by the hand of a gun. I've never been a fan of Charlie Kirk, mostly because I live under the LGBTQ plus umbrella and disagree with everything he says. Then again, I hate all politicians and politics because it's such a wildfire of a situation already. I do not support the shooting in any way, but I am relieved that a Nazi sympathizer is no longer wasting my oxygen." Unsurprisingly, that second half did very little to quell suspicions about potential foreknowledge. So people kept digging. and eventually they found a second Instagram account that belongs to Sky called letters_2_bishop. This account had a post with a picture of another band, presumably also in Utah, where one of the members bore a striking resemblance to the aforementioned Omar Najera. This led some people to speculate that they were bandmates, but as per God's Finest bio before Charlie Kirk's death, it was a band of one. There was one last person who was similarly picked up by Twitter as potentially having foreknowledge because just a day prior to the incident, they had said, September 10th will be a very interesting day. While this tweet got tens of millions of views, they continued to be active on Twitter and showed proof that they very frequently made this kind of tweet. So sooner or later, this kind of coincidence would happen by sheer volume. Now, we are going to revisit the topic of people potentially having foreknowledge of the assassination, but at this point, as it stood, it was confirmed that none of these people were the killer, begging the question, who was actually behind the assassination? A whole day and a half after the shooting, on the evening of the 11th, the pictures of the killer in a cap and dark glasses were released. One of Tyler's friends, who was in the same Discord server with about 18 other people, sent the picture to their chat, jokingly remarking that it looked like Tyler and asking him where he was at. Tyler responded saying that his doppelganger did it, to which someone else sarcastically replied, Tyler killed Charlie. Clearly, the mere concept of Tyler doing such a thing was something his acquaintances wouldn't even consider. He was a seemingly intelligent guy, as his mother proudly bragged on Facebook about his 4.0 GPA. He was a mild-mannered indoorsman who gamed a lot, and although he wasn't a Republican like the rest of his family, he also wasn't even registered to vote and didn't express his opinions that much. Because of this, the rest of his server continued to joke about turning him in to collect the $100,000 bounty on the killer, which was eventually raised to $1.2 million, or they made recommendations that Tyler not go to a McDonald's anytime soon, referencing the notorious case of Luigi Mangione, who was caught on CCTV when he stopped to get something to eat. Tyler even contributed some jokes about himself, saying he should get rid of this manifesto and exact copy rifle I have lying around. Over a few messages, he said, I heard the ammo had something about trans stuff on it, but they aren't releasing photos or exact quotes. And also, the claim wasn't backed by the official FBI, just some dude in the briefing room. I am actually Charlie Kirk. Wanted to get out of politics, so I faked my death. Now I can live out my dream life in Kansas. Now, there is some justified debate as to whether the other people in this Discord knew the full extent of Tyler's intents and actions before, during, or after the murder of Charlie Kirk. Partly, it's because these messages were provided voluntarily by one of Tyler's friends, meaning they could have either been tailored by this friend in such a way to exclude anything that would incriminate any other members of the server, or it could mean that due to this friend's forthcoming cooperation with law enforcement, he was given a degree of privilege or protection. While it's highly likely that at least one member of this Discord was aware of Tyler's crimes, it's also likely that multiple, if not the majority of the members had no idea. And some of them even expressed grief over the assassination, remarking that Charlie didn't deserve it. Regardless, Tyler definitely seemed intent on keeping people under the impression that he was innocent, and this included his family. For nearly 2 whole days, he kept his family in the dark, and he probably would have strung them along for longer if he could. But on the evening of the 11th, Tyler's father, Matt, saw the pictures of the killer on the news. To his unimaginable shock, he saw his son being reported about on national television for having murdered Charlie Kirk. Despite his utter shock and disbelief, Matt went to his son and simply asked him, Tyler, is this you? This looks like you. Tyler immediately confessed. But when urged to turn himself in, he responded, I would rather take my own life than turn myself in. Matt promptly contacted their local Mormon bishop, Scott Messinger, and asked him what he should do, who said that despite the risk of Tyler ending up getting the death penalty, they had to turn him in, which his father did, while also refusing to accept the reward money from the FBI. Knowing that his fate had been sealed, Tyler felt the urge to come clean to his friends on Discord. Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff in a few moments. Thank you for all the good times and laughs. You've all been so amazing. Thank you all for everything. There was no immediate response, and only much later, one of the members sent a message, asking that the others pray for Tyler. At 11 p.m. that day, the cops came and arrested him, though what was supposed to give the public some relief ended up just raising even more questions. However controversial this was initially, establishing Tyler's motive was the easiest part. The casing clearly antagonized Kirk as a fascist. His family remarked that he had recently expressed that Charlie Kirk was full of hate, and his growing left-wing sentiment coincided with his distancing from his family's Mormon religious practices. The fact that he committed the crime was also an easy task to prove, as they forensically recovered a note that he had written and attempted to dispose of, wherein he said, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." On one of his devices, they also found communications with a roommate, not named in the affidavit, about needing to retrieve his rifle. This leads me to think that he acknowledged he'd made a mistake in leaving his weapon behind and wanted to go back to get it. But he took too long, and law enforcement got to it first. With the weapon and the towel it was wrapped up in, they found DNA that was a match for Tyler's. As far as the crime itself, it looked pretty open and shut. That is, until further consideration was given to other people being potentially involved in the lead-up. You see, soon after his capture, Tyler went completely silent and has refused to cooperate with the police, which led the public to discovering en masse that a lot of the finer pieces of information about his online activities came from someone else. While the roommate was initially anonymous, that didn't last long, as a neighbor of Tyler's came forward to speak with the media, and some pretty interesting things were said when the topic came up, and the neighbor claims to have witnessed them together.
Were they holding hands?
Yeah, they were. So, yeah, they drove off in his car, the Dodge Challenger.
And so they looked like they were couples?
Yeah.
There's some published reports out there that this individual, the roommate, may have been transitioning. Did that correlate with what you saw?
Yeah, definitely. I remember them talking about a doctor's appointment. It was about 2 weeks ago, I would say.
And they were kissing?
Yeah.
Do you know, where did you see them kissing?
Just coming out.
While there was some initial pushback to the narrative that Tyler was in a relationship with this roommate of his, this testimony from his neighbor went a long way to solidify this in the public sphere. An unknown source in law enforcement had already attested to the same story, and with this much scrutiny and attention on something, keeping this person's name a secret was basically impossible. Eventually, people found Tyler's Venmo account, where one name stood out: Lance Twiggs, who frequently received money from his mother for prescriptions and doctor's appointments, fitting what the neighbor had told the media. On Saturday, September 13th, the Daily Mail published an article identifying this transgender roommate and romantic partner of Tyler Robinson, with the person listed in the affidavit as a cooperator with law enforcement. In it, Lance's TikTok account, Cookies and Cream, was attached, but most of that account's posts consisted of gaming clips. It turns out this account was apparently shared with someone named Quinn, or Youngest Kami on Twitch, who didn't have any relation to
Youngest Kami.
Tyler. In turn, this led people to consider that this may not be Lance's main account. By simply checking the follows on it,
I've said this before. Like, if someone says to me that they're a Nazi, I'm shocked. It's like, what the hell? Like, and why would you even admit that? You're dumb, right? And same thing for a communist. Like, when you tell me you're a communist, it's like telling me you're a Nazi. It's actually worse, right? Because they've done more to hurt people and harm people, like collectively throughout every example that you can possibly even imagine. Yeah. So when you say you're a communist, I'm like, I can't believe this. And why are you publicly saying this? Is crazy to me. And people in Ottawa, and I shared the last election we had as well. There were people like in Ottawa and surrounding areas and other areas as well. But I was more like interested in like the polls and stats here because it's local. Thousands of people were voting for a Communist Party in Ottawa and outside, like Nepean, Barhaven. I shared this. I shared the polls, and wild.
You can find Lance's actual account, Lance Alotto, although nothing related to Tyler can be found.
Right. If that was a Nazi party and there were thousands of people in Ottawa that were voting for a Nazi party, like that would absolutely be, again, mainstream media, like 24/7 broadcast.
Here, mostly because the majority of the posts come from long before Lance would have been his roommate. As this news grew to national proportions, relatives of Lance's began to speak out, claiming that Tyler and Lance hated conservatives and Christians. Going on to say, "I think Tyler got a whole lot worse in the year they've been dating. They are big gamers, and obviously they have that group that influences them as well as others." Lance disclosed that he had a boyfriend, not to me directly. He wanted to have lunch with other family members to introduce his boyfriend. I was afraid he might hurt someone. Lance is not a healthy person. He's very angry with anyone who is supportive of conservative ideals and Christian values. As far as I know, he was not going by another name. I just know he was in the process of transitioning. I know he was trying to take different medications. Now, I should note that I'm exclusively going off of what's on the news, as misinformation related to this aspect of the story peaked on Twitter. But based on a collection of testimonies from multiple and mostly anonymous relatives who were spoken to by the media, both Tyler and Lance were black sheep of their families to different degrees. Tyler was mostly described as resigned from any social activity, being a big gamer since a very young age in a way that is almost disarmingly relatable. He wanted to develop games. His friends described him as fun to be around, despite being shy and quiet. Lance, on the other hand, was seemingly more outspoken and angry about his views, which was described by a relative, which signals a greater degree of comfort expressing them. This also fits their online presence, as Tyler had seemingly no significant public profiles, while Lance had multiple. This includes the aforementioned TikTok, a now privated Instagram account, and possibly the most revealing one out of all of them, a Reddit account. Before I get into the actual contents of Lance's Reddit, it's important to note that due to the lack of information up until this point, a lot of people resorted to creating imagined versions of this person that were convenient to their preconceptions. Some people were prone to immediately and completely exonerate Lance due to his cooperation with law enforcement. Others leaned toward the narrative that he was at least complicit, if not actively pushing or pressuring Tyler to do what he did. Unsurprisingly, neither of these assumptions were exactly true. His Reddit history goes back over half a decade, and up until 2024, there are several patterns we can pick up on. For example, very early on, around 2019, you can find references to jokes about killing furries, criticisms to J.K. Rowling for making Harry Potter characters gay, and even positive comments on campaigns like "it's okay to be white," as well as criticisms of how black people were socially allowed to exclude white people from their spaces, but not the other way around. Clearly, in 2019, Lance wasn't what you'd call a staunch left-winger, to say the least. But something changed in 2020. Before, Lance often made positive posts relating to other Reddit users over his intent of getting his video game addiction under control, wanting to start lifting weights again, get good grades, and find a girlfriend. After 2020, one of the first significant posts on his account is him arguing with other people over transgenderism. Specifically, Lance can be seen calling his old self transphobic and claiming that children should be allowed to transition. It also seems he began exploring existentialist philosophy, taking an interest in Nietzsche and Stoicism as they related to managing suffering and negative/painful situations that you wish to be out of. By 2022, he was already posting to subreddits like femboy_IRL and r/196. Both of which are well known for their predominantly trans user base. This isn't to say he was a conventional left-winger though, as multiple posts signaled that he was sufficiently far left, and that he no longer believed in political parties altogether, claiming that all they were after was money. Another interesting sign here is his continued investment not only in video games, but also in websites like 4chan, and more specifically, the R9K board. If you want a slightly deeper dive into what goes on R9K, you can watch my video about Reiko's femboy cult, but to make a long story short, it's infamous for being full of rabid incels, transgender people, and combinations of the two, all of whom are bonding over feeling socially excluded or otherwise dysfunctional. If you've been listening to what I've been saying, then I think you're starting to get the idea. All of this automatically put Lance squarely outside of the regular political spectrum. And although he was clearly left-wing, he definitely felt ambivalent about a lot of issues. For example, in one instance, he actually made fun of people who got upset that the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, Scott Cawthon, had donated to Republican politicians, and complained about incessant Russia versus Ukraine discussions creeping into the subreddits he frequented. At a surface level, Lance wasn't an extremely rigorous left-winger. He posted on the Jordan Peterson subreddit criticizing echo chambers and expressing his distaste for how much of the sub had been overtaken with political discussions, while also specifying that Jordan had been pivotal to his personal growth, complimenting his 12 Rules for Life book and defending him from detractors. Another expression of his lack of political rigor is that while he posted a lot on a joke sub called Love for Landlords, which sarcastically praises landlords while depicting them as the most cruel and greedy capitalists imaginable, he also posted to r/no working, which parodied the infamous leftist sub r/anti-work. But make no mistake, in spite of his overall lax attitude towards politics, there were some things he took more seriously, and he only grew to take them more seriously as time went on. First off, he unsurprisingly had a more concerned approach when it came to gender ideology, condemning misgendering, and even raising an issue with how the left commodified the trans rights cause. Oddly enough, his post about it is on the r/anarcho-capitalism subreddit, although it doesn't seem like Lance has any other activity associated with libertarianism, besides a few passing comments on the legalization of drugs. Before he had any cohesive political beliefs, from a young age, Lance struggled with substance abuse. While he took an interest in subreddits like r/shrooms and r/acid, it's his post on r/alcoholism that is the most revealing out of all of them. In a reply to someone talking about how alcohol can cause blackouts, he wrote, "I appreciate the resources. I'll definitely read through the Alcohol Explained book. The blackout piece was solid. I don't think about choking. I am so glad I can't fall asleep on my back. It kinda saved me there. Lol. I kinda feel like it's too late on the addiction part, because I did a ton of weed earlier in my teens, and I can tell it messed with my energy and attention levels. And I mean this in no edgy or depressing way, but I don't really see myself making it past about 25 at this rate, so I'm not too worried about the long-term effects. I think I'll wait until legal age at least to try any alcohol again though." While this is quite revealing on its own, with Lance expressing a certain degree of hopelessness about his own life expectancy, it gets more interesting when you check the other comments on this thread and notice he's replying to all of them. Based on this, despite the original thread now being deleted and having its contents, as well as who created it, hidden, the Wayback Machine reveals what was originally there. In the thread's body, Lance, who would be 19 or 18 at the time this thread was made, tells a story in which Lance drank anywhere from half to a whole bottle of 40% vodka in 2 hours, while simultaneously being high, blacked out, and waking up with vomit everywhere. Clearly, there was something wrong with him. And other posts also have him talking about suffering from bulimia. Although there are some associations between eating disorders and substance abuse, and also with both of those things and gender dysphoria, what's important to focus on here is how it all contributes to his aforementioned hopelessness. The idea that he'll be dying soon no matter what. Based on other posts of his, Lance identified himself and his friends as abandoning religious beliefs, and even described a situation in which his family basically disowned him relating to it. While this matches the testimony of one of Lance's relatives, it doesn't tell the full story, as he continued to live with his family for a good while after. Even after he moved out to be roommates with Tyler, the Venmo shows he continued to get money sent to him by his parents, and it's quite likely they helped them with their housing, since the place they shared cost $1,800 a month. And as far as is publicly known, neither of them had very good jobs to afford that kind of place. Even if they had issues with them, both Lance and Tyler appeared to receive continuous support from their families despite their lifestyle. While there has been a lot of conflicting information about this, Lance was indeed undergoing a transition, at least as of a year ago, as he could be seen talking about the effects of HRT on r/trans DIY about a year ago. Soon after that, about 10 months ago as of me writing this, he already mentioned having a boyfriend, which coincides with the reports he was in a relationship with Tyler. There's one last bit of info that I think is worth correcting. There's been some speculation that Lance's Instagram bio having the word fish finder is some kind of coded message about grooming minors into becoming trans. While that is a very real phenomenon, with the likes of Giggly Goon Clown being obsessed with doing exactly that. In this case, it's incorrect. Not only is Lance on the record years ago talking about how much he liked going fishing, but he also has some posts criticizing online trans communities for calling other people eggs, which basically means they're trans but haven't discovered themselves yet. With all of this established and paired with testimonies from their relatives, there was nothing particularly unusual about their upbringing. This extremely sad and dark picture from Tyler's mom's Facebook shows him in 2013 playing a game on his computer. Lance is no different, although instead of performing really well academically, like Tyler, Lance actually seemed more socially well-adjusted and artistically inclined.
My name is Lance Twitz. I am playing country concerto for young pianists, and I like piano because it gives me something other than playing video games to do with my fingers.
But from 2019 to 2024, both of them slowly moved from somewhat apolitical to left-wing, with a large emphasis on the topic of trans rights. While Lance's was well documented through his own Reddit, Tyler's was quieter. But there, nonetheless, a former classmate of his described him as being a Reddit kid. Seemingly, just like something happened in 2020, a similar effect took place in 2024 when Lance and Tyler moved in together, and their families started to notice both of them feeding off of each other and becoming more politically inclined. For a few days after the assassination, the exact dynamic between them was unknown. But just a few days ago, their final Discord messages to one another were released, and they read as follows. Tyler, drop what you are doing. Look under my keyboard. Lance, what? You're joking, right? Here, Tyler is referencing the note I had mentioned earlier that had been destroyed and was recovered, where he declared he was going to take Charlie's life. Their conversation continued. Tyler, I'm still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this a secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Lance, you weren't the one who did it, right? Tyler, I'm sorry. Lance, I thought they caught the person. Tyler, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet. Almost quiet enough to get out. But there's one vehicle lingering. Lance, why? Tyler, why did I do it? Lance, yeah. And Tyler responds with the following diatribe. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve...
I think that, again, I don't know, but I think that again, it sounds like a bit scripted for sure. Like, I think it's a way of covering his ass. I don't know why Tyler's doing that when this... Anyway, it is what it is. And even with, like, the timestamps saying that the phone was damaged, when you can, like, at least with certain phones, you can, like... And they would have the records anyway, so like the timestamps do matter. But like to just even slide the message to the left or right, you can get that timestamp. And then from the top of the messages for the day, you can get the date.
It again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Lance, how long have you been planning this? Tyler, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge ooh-woo on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm gonna have to leave it. That really sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Delete this exchange. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Since Trump got into office, he has been pretty diehard MAGA. I'm gonna turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. You are all I worry about, love. Lance, I'm much more worried about you. Tyler, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. While Lance did follow Tyler's wishes on the first request, he didn't on the second, as he did cooperate with law enforcement extensively as per the affidavit. Now, if you're wondering about the visuals for the messages on screen, those are not the actual screenshots, but instead depictions of what the messages would look like. However, the contents of the messages are genuine. It's technically possible that Lance and Tyler coordinated this exchange beforehand to exonerate Lance of any cooperation, given the pretty performative nature of some of Tyler's messages especially. Given they did live together and shared political views, it's not impossible. But at the same time, it's also possible that, indeed, Tyler concocted and carried this plan out on his own. Given Lance was more expressive and even-minded, while Tyler was much harder to read even by his close friends, it could be that the latter was a ticking time bomb, and his political beliefs about Charlie Kirk, paired with his attachment to Lance, who was trans, were enough to set him off. As it currently stands, Tyler is potentially facing the death penalty, and Lance is nowhere to be seen or heard from. For many people, this was case closed, but other people have pitched the possibility that even if Lance had no foreknowledge, it doesn't mean other people couldn't have. Beyond those I've mentioned earlier in the video,
just so, because people are talking about like if Tyler Robertson has pled guilty or not guilty, etc. And I did want to correct the record on that. So no, Tyler Robinson has not pled guilty to the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk as of mid-July 2026. Robinson has not entered any plea at all yet. So he hasn't entered a plea for guilty, not guilty, or no contest in court. While prosecutors have presented confessions and stuff like that, that's not Tyler Robertson saying like guilty, not guilty, etc. He cannot be forced to plead, whether it be guilty, not guilty, or no contest. He can't be forced to. So voluntary requirement courts are legally obligated to reject guilty pleas that are not made voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently, obviously. Okay, so defendant's choice. The decision to plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest belongs exclusively to Robinson, not his attorneys, the judge, or the prosecutors. While prosecutors can offer plea deals, often trading a guilty plea for a lighter sentence, they cannot compel him to accept one. Right to trial. Robinson has an absolute right to a jury trial, and that's going to happen. So he can maintain a not guilty stance indefinitely until the verdict is reached. Okay, so current case status, he has not entered any plea. Okay, so what happens if he refuses to plead, right? So automatic entry. Under U.S. federal rules and Utah state law, if a defendant refuses to plead, whether it be guilty, not guilty, or no contest, the judge orders the clerk to enter a not guilty plea. So he doesn't have to say anything. And if he says nothing, it'll be a not guilty plea just by proxy or whatever you call it. So no penalty for silence. This forced entry carries no procedural penalty. Robinson retains all his rights, including the right to a jury trial, the right to confront witnesses, and the presumption of innocence. The prosecution still bears the full burden of proving his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Proceeding to trial, once the not guilty plea is entered by the court, the case proceeds exactly as if Robinson had said the words himself. A trial date is set, and pretrial motions continue. Okay, so the major next step, the final arguments on September 1st, 2026, where Judge Tony Graff will decide if the case moves to trial. At that future arraignment or trial start, if Robinson remains silent, the judge will simply enter a not guilty plea for him, and the trial will proceed.
There were a few other suspicious details surrounding the whole incident. For example, a neighbor of theirs claimed that 2 weeks prior to the attack, several people driving cars with out-of-state plates were seen going in and out. Additionally, there were a couple of Change.org petitions by locals who were vehemently opposed to Charlie Kirk speaking at the university, and some of the comments got pretty questionable. Besides the name-calling and political accusations, there were some comments like, "No tolerance for Nazis like Kirk. Stop the speaking or someone else will." Of course, this could just be someone making a baseless threat due to how they felt about Charlie, but it goes deeper. A day prior to the assassination, a now deleted TikTok account called Definitely Not Jackson made a post with the captions, "Charles James Kirk, Mr. College Dropout, does not know what's coming tomorrow. Be ready. This isn't a threat. It's a promise. It's a bad day to be Charlie tomorrow. #UVU. Again, this could just be a reference to the debate itself as some illusion that Charlie will get owned or something in the marketplace of ideas. But there's also more. 5 days prior to the shooting, a Twitter user named Fuyoshi Incel said, "You guys, I have something big coming soon. Just be sure to check the news. You'll know it when you see it. Winky emoji face." And within a few hours of the assassination, he came back to say, "Well, that's that. Another chud bites the dust." This account currently appears to be completely gone. Lastly, a TikTok and Twitter user who followed Lance Twiggs by the name of Churbum75.
There are trolls and rage baiters and plants and even like feds and stuff like that, and intelligence that will do things like that. Again, and it's to anyway.
As soon as the attack took place, tweeted out, "We did it." Adding insult to injury, he followed it up with, "Charlie Kirk deserved."
They do it to see if they can get people again that are like-minded or whatever, or that have those same views, to see if they'll reach out to them, and then they can have conversations, sidebars, etc. And then they can again get access, like acting as informants or covert operations again, to get like access to networks. Like if these people are supporting this, like again, what are they involved in, right? And so sometimes it's just a entrapment.
That. Let it die. On his TikTok, he set his account to the picture of the moment Kirk was shot, along with a lot of other vile posts about it. By merely searching up his handle on Twitter, it's easy to find that just days prior, he was in hot water for insincerely apologizing for making offensive jokes in a Discord server. With all of those elements put together, this matched the profile of unconventional leftists that would be expected. Churbum eventually shared conversations he'd had with a friend of his, where his friend is saying, "We aren't even old enough to hold a gun without a weapon charge." But of course, at this point, the concern wasn't that anyone besides Tyler actually did it, but instead that other people knew that he would beforehand. He eventually made a tweet claiming that it was all a misunderstanding and he was just an immature teenager scared for his life. Despite tweeting out many times afterwards, asking to be left alone and saying that joking about people dying is wrong, Churbum continued to make light of what happened, leading many people to be suspicious. Whatever the case is with any of these specific accounts, people are innocent until proven guilty. And I'm not making this video to endorse doxing anyone because of what they post on Twitter. If there is genuine suspicion, it should be handled by the authorities. And on the 16th of September, nearly a week after the incident, it was announced by the FBI that there were a lot more than 20 people in Tyler's Discord chat, and that all of them were now under FBI investigation. Another interesting claim is that there was a broad network of groups with intel on Kirk's assassination and the subsequent announcement of investigation of NGOs, although what exactly this means has yet to be seen. What it could be related to is the recent discovery related to the Utah-based group Armed Queers SLC. Founded in 2020, Armed Queers identified itself as a...
Look at the ADL, again, there were so many groups, right? And even pro-Israel groups and foundations, religious groups, etc., that were spewing so much hate about Charlie Kirk. Absolutely disgusting. And then you don't think that people are going to get radicalized enough and feel emboldened to murder him? Come on. What are we doing? And this, I'm going to reiterate, this is because in the U.S. is like finally again putting more pressure on this, but in Canada we still have RCMP, CSIS, etc., that are flipping the friggin' pyramid, right? They're focused so much on fake right-wing terrorism, domestic threats, all this stuff. It's fucking fake, especially Christian conservatives. What is wrong with you? The least likely to commit violence and all of these things. I don't care what anyone says. The fact the far left has become so violent and coordinating with the Red-Green Alliance, not at all good for Canada, ladies and gentlemen, historically speaking as well. And I just, yeah. There needs to be more arrests, more deportations of people on like the Red-Green Alliance. Full stop. It is causing so much damage. Again, I myself have been targeted. Again, I have a small channel. I'm shadow banned for the most part. I'm not even on TikTok. Well, I just started, but maybe one video I've posted, maybe two. And I've been doxxed by Autumn Rain, a black man in a dress in Ottawa, right? My address, all of these things, a veteran female. And still, like, I tried to give that to law enforcement, did nothing about it. And again, was that a plant? Was that law enforcement troll doxing my house? I want to know. I don't know. Or was that, again, just some kind of a crazy radical? And is he doing this to other women, other Christian women in the community, or conservative women in the community? Probably. And it's just so frustrating that these people get away with it, right? When they commit blatant crimes, right? And they don't even get talked to. But if I would have done that to him, like doxed his house, and said something about him, derogatory against the LGBTQ plus community, I would have had a SWAT car come to my fucking house in Ottawa. Ridiculous.
Revolutionary LGBTQ organization, whose principles included the end of capitalist oppression and trans liberation. At face value, it looks like nothing out of the ordinary for this kind of collective, but it was discovered that this group was founded and led by a certain Ermia Fanayan, who had won an award from the Utah Council for Citizens Diplomacy in 2022, was once listed by the Utah Global Diplomacy NGO as a young diplomat of Utah, and was listed as being on the payroll of the Utah State Democratic Committee. The scope of this kind of thing is unassumingly huge, as Ermia was a speaker at a UN-affiliated event, and the Utah Global Diplomacy received most of its income directly from government grants. As early as 2019, Ermia can be seen on stage alongside people like Elizabeth Warren. 4 years later, in January 2023, armed queers made now-deleted posts about working with the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. 2 years after that, just 2 months ago, on the 14th of July, 10 to 12 members of this gun club gathered near an ICE detention center, setting off fireworks and vandalizing vehicles with phrases like ice pig and traitor in an attempt to draw out officers. They then proceeded to
ice pig. That just reminded me too about it's circulating now. It's unfortunate. It's so tragic, but a 43-year-old woman, I think she might have been from the US, she married an asylum seeker, and he is the #1 suspect in her murdered her, and she was posting all online these anti-ICE like the anti-ICE rhetoric, all of this stuff, and again promoting again like that, like it's just the suicidal empathy and homicidal empathy, dying to live.
Opened fire on several unarmed officers nearby, succeeding in killing none of them, but they did injure one officer in the neck. Immediately after, all of them were arrested and had their property seized. Multiple of the people arrested had prior criminal histories of similar crimes. Of course, everything I'm saying here is circumstantial, but still, it seems to be enough that the FBI is currently investigating Ermia about her potentially having some relation, not just to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but also to any other similar crimes that have occurred recently. Ultimately, it's impossible to know just how much sprawl this kind of thing has, but considering how massive organizations and cults like the Zizians or 764 have gotten, it's best to sort this out as early as possible, before any other crimes can take place. Whatever the case may be, it's an absolute tragedy that Charlie Kirk lost his life. To a lesser degree, it's also a tragedy that people like Tyler got to the point of committing such a crime. Hopefully, nothing of this kind ever happens again. I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
It's good. That was a good video. Really good video. And again, I think he posted this like 9 months ago, 8 months ago, maybe. Let me see. Not 9 months ago. And yeah. Put the pressure on. I will. It's a long video. I want to share a bit, finish off with Canadian news. Because again, I think it is important, obviously. Like, I'm Canadian and we're going through a friggin' mess right now. Here we go. New evidence connects Carney's Saudi negotiations to major Brookfield benefits. No shit. He's going to get into other things as well.
He is getting the bridge done on time, on budget.
Sometimes the evidence is sitting in plain sight. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. Today I'm going to show you the real reason Mark Carney is making new relationships in the Middle East. We also have a clip of him getting asked about the bridge and the disastrous deal he made. Pierre Poilievre clapping back. Got some other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off on the National Post, we've got foreign migrant living illegally in Canada, eligible for Ontario Welfare Tribunal rules. The case revealed welfare intake workers did not conduct immigration checks of the applicant to avoid jeopardizing his ability to remain in Canada. That's right. So you don't even have to be a Canadian to get benefits in Canada. And a lot of these benefits are better than Canadians get themselves. Welcome to Canada. Moving ahead, I've come across some new evidence sitting in plain sight, which is the final piece that makes all of this make sense. Mark Carney going over to Saudi Arabia. You've got articles like this from the Globe and Mail. Carney defends courting Saudi trade and investment. And there's a whole CBC piece talking about the forced labor and all this kind of stuff. You can still do business with those kind of countries that have those bad kind of things. Why did Mark Carney go over there? No.
In the last few years, like, women can actually drive vehicles there now.
Prime Minister had met with the Saudis for 26 years and suddenly Carney goes over there. Well, let me paint a picture for you. Let's start right here on Brookfield's website. This is Brookfield Arabia for Business Services. And if we scroll down, we see right here, registration number, so commercial registration information, Brookfield Arabia Business Services, established as a single shareholder, closed joint stock company. Commercial registration number right there. This is on February 6th, 2023. Products and services offered for Brookfield Arabia Business Services focuses on infrastructure, renewable power, and transition, private equity, real estate, and credit. List of direct controllers, Brookfield Asia Holdings. Now you're already thinking, oh, Brookfield Arabia. It gets deeper than that, much deeper than that, because Mark Carney, while setting up different funds, as we see on CTV here, Brookfield registered entities to Grand Cayman, address Obama called largest tax scam in the world. So Obama was saying that there's a building in the Cayman Islands where there's all these businesses registered. It's the biggest tax scam in the world. And we see right here, among the business entities registered to the Cayman Islands is a limited partnership linked to Brookfield's United Arab Emirates-backed Catalytic Transition Fund, launched under Mark Carney's stewardship. Mark Carney set up the Catalytic Transition Fund for investment in transitioning in emerging markets focused on Asia and the Middle East. So he sets up this Catalytic Transition Fund here, $5 billion. You can see United Arab Emirates, $2.4 billion. CDPQ, what do you know? They're in on this too. GIC, Singapore's largest sovereign wealth fund. We got Temasek Holdings from Singapore, Prudential PLC. This is from the UK. We got Altera, $1 billion, UAE-based climate fund providing $1 billion anchor commitment. Carney sets this up in the Cayman Islands to do business in the Middle East and Asia. He set this up December 2023 as he was the newly minted chair of Brookfield Asset Management. Before that, he was brought in August 2020 as the vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management and the head of ESG, environmental social governance. This is the press release they put out August 26, 2020. Carney brought in vice chair, head of ESG, impact investing, transition, green net zero. That's what he's brought in at Brookfield to do. He gets upgraded to chair of Brookfield Asset Management. And just a year later, he then sets up this fund, Catalytic Transition Fund, to service the Middle East and Asia. And that was the third fund he set up. His first one was the Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1. Then he sets up Transition Fund 2. Then he set up the Catalytic Transition Fund. They register Brookfield Arabia for Business Services in Saudi Arabia. You can see this is before he set up the Catalytic Transition Fund. So they knew exactly where they were going to be putting their money. They set this up first to make sure that this process would get into the works. But that's when they ran into a problem. The tax rate in Saudi Arabia, it's not favorable to Brookfield. Corporate tax in Saudi Arabia, what do we have? 20% tax rate applies to the following entities and persons: foreign-owned entities, companies fully or partially owned by non-Saudi, etc. So this would be Brookfield. They would be taxed 20% in Saudi Arabia. And that's if they get approval. They have to get approval to operate there, and then they'd get taxed in Canada for who knows what, 26% or so. They'd be taxed 46% for doing business there. Obviously, that's not good for business when you're losing nearly half your revenue. On top of that, we can see there's other taxes here, management fees, there's 20%, technical consultancy fees, 15%, dividends, interest, royalties, 5%. This all applies to Brookfield. They do management, that's what they do. Technical, consultancy, dividends, this is all Brookfield's wheelhouse. There's a lot of fees here. This is not good business for them. And they've got double tax because Canada doesn't have a treaty with Saudi Arabia, which we can see here on this website, foreign tax relief, tax treaties. And these are all the different countries you can see with DTAs. This is double tax agreements. Canada has concluded double taxation agreements with the following countries. And if we hit Control F and search for Saudi Arabia, nothing comes up. We do not have a double tax agreement with Saudi Arabia. This is bad for business for Brookfield. Now, the average Canadian business doesn't really care because they don't have access to Saudi sovereign wealth funds, but Brookfield does. And they don't want to be paying an extra 5% on dividends, 5% on interest, 15% on royalties, and then an extra 20% tax to the Saudi Arabia government. And then that money comes into Canada. The remaining 80% would then get taxed 20 some odd percent. So Mark Carney's like, I got an idea. Mark Carney becomes the unelected prime minister beginning of 2025. Then he becomes the barely elected prime minister at the end of April 2025. A year later, 2026, in the month of June. What do we see? This right here, published date June 11th, 2026. The Capital Market Authority licenses Brookfield Arabia for business services to conduct managing investments and operating funds activity in the securities business and its completion of the commencements of business requirements. In accordance with the capital law issued by royal decree, etc., the implementing regulations, the Capital Market Authority announces that Brookfield Arabia for business services has completed the commencements of business requirements to conduct managing investments and operating funds activity in the security businesses license as per CMA resolution dated. You get the idea. Brookfield got their license to operate in Saudi Arabia on June 11th. Mark Carney goes over to Saudi Arabia less than a month later on July 9th. And he says, hey, Your Royal Highness, Mohammed bin Salman, how about we work out a deal? How about we work out something here? It's my first time to Saudi Arabia in 26 years. And he's like, okay, yeah, what do you want to do? What kind of deal? He mentioned sovereign wealth fund money, Canada's pension funds, a delegation of Canada's pension funds will come with Francois Philippe Champagne to invest in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, what happened behind the scenes that nobody's talking about on the same day, July 9th, 2026, the two sides have agreed to launch negotiations for double taxation agreement and welcome the ongoing foreign investment promotion and protection agreement negotiations with a view to concluding them early 2027. You see what happened here? Mark Carney set up a fund at Brookfield, the Catalytic Transition Fund, which is for emerging markets transitioning to net zero. He sets this up himself at Brookfield. He then applies for a license to operate in Saudi Arabia or someone close to him. You can see what they're investing in here. Infrastructure, renewable power, transition. These are Mark Carney's portfolios at Brookfield. They apply to operate in Saudi Arabia. They get the approval. Mark Carney goes there and then is now negotiating a deal to get rid of double taxation because it's costing Brookfield a ton of money. And what's likely here, they could get this 20% down to like 5%, 7%. These fees can go down to 5%, 10%. A lot of these ones, the dividends will go down to 0%. And the big one, this 20%, the double taxation agreements basically treat it as if you pay 20% to the Saudi government, or say Brookfield does. Then when they go to pay taxes in Canada and say they pay $200,000 in taxes, say 20% of $1 million, when they come to Canada and say they have to pay 26% tax, they would owe $260,000 in tax. Well, this agreement would treat it as if they've already paid $200,000 to the Saudis, so all they have to do is pay $60,000 to the Canadian government, saving them 20% of tax in Canada. So it removes the double taxation. This is excellent for Brookfield. What Carney's doing here, this will save them a crap ton of money. Does this really benefit Canadian companies? Is there local parts dealer that's selling widgets over in Saudi Arabia? No. Of course not. That's why we haven't had a double taxation agreement. It's not economical to do business over there. Canada exports to Saudi Arabia. You can see this has bounced around a lot. It wasn't that much last year, $924 million. We mostly buy oil from them, despite us having so much oil. That goes to the East Coast. What are we selling? We're selling them vehicles other than railway, tramway, machinery, nuclear reactors, boilers, pharmaceutical products. It's mostly big stuff, not mom and pop stuff. Everyday Canadians, this doesn't benefit us at all. But boy, if he's able to get this double taxation agreement inked, this is going to be a huge home run for Brookfield. As we see right on the Government of Canada website, this is under income tax continued. This is section 126.1. A taxpayer who is a resident in Canada at any time in a taxation year may deduct from the tax of the year otherwise payable under the part of the taxpayer an amount to such part of any business income tax paid by the taxpayer for the year to the government of a country other than Canada. So this is obviously the wording of this is kind of convoluted, but basically they don't have to pay double tax. If he's able to ink this deal, Brookfield then will save 20%. Well, if they're doing, say, $1 billion of business over in Saudi Arabia, they save $200 million in a single year. What if they're doing $10 billion? They save $2 billion of taxes. Just imagine if the mainstream media actually did this work and put this out to Canada. How would Canadians really feel about Mark Carney? Our country's in a sad state right now. Moving ahead from CTV, we've got a good deal for Canada. PM Carney insists not a lot of revenue to split with the U.S. on the Gordie Howe Bridge. That's right. The awful deal he made isn't that awful, according to Mark Carney. We got Melissa Lansman sharing this National News Watch. I've been training all year. Carney masters the art of flipping Stampede flapjacks. Okay, yeah, that's not a real story. She says, PMO, please stop talking about the bridge. Media, okay, got it. So here we got Carney getting asked about the bridge. This was inevitable. This is at Stampede.
Well, I think there's a couple of things about the deal. First, I'm happy the bridge is going to be open. Yeah, we need it. We need it because we're still expanding trade. Second thing is the word net does a lot of work in this. We are sharing after Canada is paid back. So we get the revenues then the servicing of the costs of the bridge and paying the debt of the bridge, and then what's left over, there's a split of that for 15 years. And the U.S. money is invested back in economic development in the region, the U.S. side of the region, obviously, which is going to help drive more traffic. The initial years of this bridge, there is, traffic volumes are going to build up. So there's not going to be a lot of net to split. So look, it's a good deal for Canada. And what's really good is getting the bridge done on time, on budget, and to build out together.
So there's a bunch of.
I don't know if he already said it, but he was booed at the Stampede because again, he's a fucking dork. Anyway, sorry for swearing unnecessary. It's just like even just seeing this guy, like I think he's such a clown. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Lindsey Graham because he just passed away, and Lindsey Graham, the longtime South Carolina Republican and foreign policy hawk, died on some accounts are saying July 12th, some are saying July 11th, but again, it depends on the time zone you're looking at. So anyways, July 12th, 2026 at age 71 due to a brief and sudden illness, according to his office and multiple news outlets. While conspiracy theories circulated online regarding his death, no evidence or foul play has been presented. Graham was notable for his public stance on the COVID-19 pandemic, having contracted the virus in August 2021. And again, I do remember all of this stuff. So despite being fully vaccinated, he contracted that. And I was literally sharing the VAERS showing that, again, even in February 2021, several months before this, it showed that 4.3 or 4. I think it was 4.6% of people that were vaccinated, like the VAERS that were reported, and again, it was very much underreported. People contracted COVID via inoculation, and then again, even in March of 2022, had to be sued to get that information. Those VAERS, yet again, people contracting COVID via inoculation, and even lethalities as early as February 2021, that was already out. And so the fact that Lindsey Graham was pushing and we were saying like, anyway, fully vaccinated and again, fully pushing the COVID bullshit, got a lot of people killed, lockdown. And again, for years, like even with with the children and the impact on their cognitive development and motor skills and even sports and things like that. Like it's like, this is going to be, again, something that we're going to have to mitigate for years to come. Unfortunately, people can't rate at their grade level. And again, my sister is a teacher. I know other teachers internationally as well that I've spoken to, and they say the same thing. And even the curriculum, like a lot of teachers are more and more pushing back on like these forced curriculums and stuff like that with like, again, false history, false science, it's just crazy. And they're still getting a lot of pushback because there's still a lot of Karens, men and women, by the way, even within academia, from daycares all the way up to the Ivy League institutions that are so brainwashed and brain rotted, actually, as well. I almost said that. And indoctrinated, right? And it's just absolutely unfortunate that Canada, we used to have like some of the smartest, greatest people that would be working in the fields that they had every business working into. And now, especially in the last decade, like it's not based on merit at all to be in any job within government or in academia or in like the medical fields or scientific fields here. It's all, again, woke DEI, ESG stuff. So we're not getting, again, like the, and people from other countries as well. That's what bothers me as well. Like as a Canadian, I'm like, Canada first. Why are we not employing the best? First of all, why are we not employing the best? And then also with that, why are we not employing Canadians, right? Especially veterans, law enforcement, whether it be fire department, whether it be military, etc., because they do come with a lot of experience, historically, verifiable, factually correct. And we have been sidelined. It used to be where we would be the first on the list for employment after the military, and rightfully so, because again, we already have so many qualifications, right? That anyway, and so like for employment post-military or post-law enforcement, we used to be top of the list. And I know that sounds crazy, and you might think that that's discriminatory. It's not. It was because it was based on merit. We've already proven, right, that we can, that we've fulfilled like the physical requirements to do jobs that are less difficult and challenging than the jobs we were doing for decades, you know? And so, but that has completely shifted. Right now, it's like if you're a lesbian, gay, disabled, like whatever, you're top of the list. And we've gone to the bottom of the list and also seen again as extremists, some radicals, and like, oh, like we can't hire them or anything like that. Because like, again, bad, radicals, crazy. Especially if you're Christian, ew.
Lies in here we need to go through. First off, his wording talking about the net. This is very selective language.
Canada is paid back, so we get the revenues, then the servicing of the costs of the bridge.
We get the revenues and servicing costs to the bridge. So what he's really saying here is the money that comes into the bridge from the tolls will go to pay the debt servicing cost and the operations of the bridge. And just pick a random number. Say it's $100,000 a month to pay for that stuff. I have no idea what the number is, but to say 100 grand, then anything over.
I almost forgot Lindsey Graham as well. And again, rest in peace. And like, I do think that he thought that he was coming from a good place as senator, maybe, but he got a lot of money and power and influence because of pushing misinformation and outright lies that actually got people killed within his own country, which is unfortunate. And so even with 9/11 and Iraq War, again, I'm going to get into this. And again, this is just to talk about, again, his legacy. 9/11 and Iraq War. Graham was a vocal supporter of the 2003 Iraq War, famously asserting in 2002 that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, a claim later proven false. Okay, and so as someone that for 15 years, from 2001 to 2016, the entirety basically of the Afghanistan Middle East war, I served, including in the special forces, and I buried people that I loved overseas, did the ramp ceremonies, all of these things for people from other countries as well, again, because again, it was a coalition of forces. And then the suicides afterwards that we're still dealing with. And again, people like him lied to us, to our fucking faces. And anyway, and Netanyahu also in on that, right? With C-SPAN, we saw 2002, I believe it was, lying to Congress about weapons of mass destruction. Again, he was lying as well. Got a lot of people killed. A lot of money going towards these wars as well that, again, made the military, pharmaceutical, industrial tech complex richer, but all of us poorer and traumatized. Yeah, complex PTSD. Anyway. Ukraine war. Graham was one of the most ardent supporters of U.S. aid to Ukraine, visiting the country 10 times since the 2022 invasion. His controversial remark in 2023 that Russian deaths were the best money we've ever spent, anyways, drew accusations of bloodthirstiness, but it was an expression of a strategic view that weakening Russia served U.S. interests, which is absolutely not true, especially with Ukraine as well, like being, again, corrupt and the stage and planned coup, and again, like the money going to, again, rich elitists, schmucks who can't even do a push-up, right? And they're the ones that are dictating policies. And anyway, so yeah, so he's been very wrong, and he's sent billions of dollars for wars that have gotten people murdered. And Israel and Gaza war, Graham's support for Israel was unwavering, often drawing fierce criticism. In 2024, he compared the stakes for Israel to Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids. And urged the U.S. to provide all necessary weaponry. He also made inflammatory remarks suggesting the International Criminal Court, ICC, was for Africa when it investigated Israel officials. While many condemned these statements as hyperbolic, insensitive, or factually dubious regarding international law, they represented his political stance rather than demonstrable lies about the event of the war itself. I won't go on further because, again, he just passed away. And again, my condolences to his family and his friends and things like that. But I will say that he has caused a lot of suffering and a lot of death. And he's not someone that was ever on the front lines of anything. And there are people that are saying it's Russia that killed him, etc. Anyway, and he even, former Prime Minister of Israel, he actually pushed foreign aid when the Prime Minister of Israel at the time was like resisting, you know what, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, here. Because again, he had stakes and investments in those donations. And so that's all I want to say more, but I think just to be respectful and stuff like that, I will leave it at that. But I will say that the world is a safer place without a minute. Yeah, so clip that.
For that. So say if the bridge makes $300,000, $100,000 goes to the operations and debt servicing charge, and then the other $200,000 gets split in half. The Americans get $100,000 and Canada gets $100,000. That's what's going on. The way he makes it sound is like we're getting the revenues and then it gets split, but there's not much money that's being split. And simply put, it's a bad deal. Now, some of that traffic being diverted from other bridges, I understand the argument. Either way, the Americans should have just coughed up half the cost of the bridge and this would be fair, or it should be like an 80-20 split. This is an awful deal. Carney did a bad job. You notice too at the end of this, what does he say?
On time, on budget, and to
it's not on time and it's not on budget. Like it just isn't. This is just another lie, and I've already added it to the Carney lie tracker. Right on Wikipedia, Gordie Howe International Bridge. What do we have? On September 28, 2018, the WDBA, which is the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Association, announced the project would cost $3.8 billion to construct. It cost, and that's Canadian dollars, and it cost $6.4 billion Canadian to actually build it. It's not on budget. It's way over budget. And this is under the majority of this under the Liberal years under Trudeau. This was initially started by Stephen Harper, this project. The bridge was to be completed by the end of 2024. That's 2 years ago, Carney. That's not on time and on budget. It's neither of those. He's saying that because it makes him sound good. Like, oh, look, I opened up this bridge. I did a lot. He did nothing except for negotiate an awful deal at the finale of the bridge before opening it. That's it. Now we got Pierre Poilievre here, absolutely hammering him.
Imagine you spent $1 million building a rental property, and then your neighbor said he wanted to collect half the rent. You paid 100% of the cost and you get only 50% of the revenue? What a terrible deal. Well, that's exactly the deal that Mark Carney just brought home on the Gordie Howe International Bridge. Canada paid for the entire $6.4 billion price tag. We even funded the infrastructure on the American side of the river, all with the understanding that we would collect 100% of the tolls until we recouped our money. Carney just agreed to give half the tolls to a Michigan economic development body that did not pay a dime to build the thing. This is our grandmaster negotiator? Look, I don't think we should fight with our American friends just for the sake of it. But here's what's clear. Carney's approach of elbows up when he thinks the president is not looking and sucking up to his face is not working. It has only given us double the tariffs on more goods and given us the only recession in the G7. Let's build our positive leverage on resources and defense and use that leverage to incentivize our American partners to remove tariffs. And let's sign a deal that makes us both better off. Enough illusions, enough theater. It's time for results.
So this is well said. And Carney, he doesn't care about getting a good deal. He's not fighting for us. Tim Hodgson's American. These guys are not fighting for Canada. The anti-Poilievre bots are out today. Yeah, there's a bunch of them on here. I don't know if these are just brainwashed Canadians or bots, but and to end this episode off, I thought I'd just note the next couple of days we'll only have one video per day going up to summit a mountain in preparations to scout out an area in regards to summiting a mountain for Maya and naming that after her. And speaking of adventures, I just uploaded another hiking video on my hiking channel. If you want to check that out, it's a story of me having a full-blown panic attack on a mountain and then going back to reconquer that mountain. If you want to check that out, it's linked up. Now, in this episode off on a lighter note, we can feel grateful that we're not in China by this river, as we see around 900 snakes, including venomous cobras, are on the loose after escaping a breeding farm during a severe flood in South China.
Nice. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going to pass going into that water. There's snakes everywhere. Yep, folks. There are snakes everywhere. There's snakes in our own government. And, well, there's snakes in the Chinese rivers as well. Stay out of the water.
Okay. All right. On that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has